Hey everybody, I'm Cameron, also known as Medium, from the acrobatic comedy show Barely Balanced.
Medium! Balanced!
Today, we're going to be stepping back in time to the 1990s, which, considering that we work at Renaissance festivals, that means we're going back to the future. Great Scott! We're going to be taking a look at my young life and the three major things that affected who I am, and oddly enough, helped me to create Barely Balanced. First of all, I have severe ADHD. I know, right? Surprise! Honestly though, it made school really difficult. I couldn't sit still, and I was constantly getting in trouble. Also, I have really bad dyslexia, and I didn't learn how to read or write until I was in 4th grade. Talk about embarrassing. It was like having a piece of broccoli stuck in your teeth every day, while also not knowing how to spell broccoli. Is there one C or two? And last, my father died when I was very young. And it meant that my mother had to constantly work to help pay for food as well as hospital bills. So there wasn't anyone there for me most of the time if I was scared or confused. And I'm thinking there might be a few people out here watching this right now that can relate to that. Now these problems might be obvious from our show, my writing, and the jokes that I make. What might not be obvious is the effect they have upon so many of us, our friends and our loved ones. And more importantly than anything, how do we live awesome, fulfilling lives that no issue can hold back? So we're going to talk about what these issues are, what you can do if you or a loved one is battling with them, and how these issues gave me the weird brain that I needed to be able to create the Barely Balanced show. First off, what is ADHD? That is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. It is one of the most common mental disorders affecting children and adults. The symptoms include inattention.
Hey, when you go to the grocery store today, would you mind grabbing eggs and veggie noodles?
Yeah, you got it, no problem.
Okay, what did I just say?
You said for me to get you chapstick and chicken.
That was not even close.
Oh.
I'll text it to you.
Okay. Hyperactivity.
Cameron!
Cameron is no more, but now I am here, the hairy hurricane. Ha ha!
No!
Help me to become even stronger. Now watch how fast I can run.
Okay.
And impulsivity.
Cameron?
I bought a unicorn onesie.
Sweet. Ow, my hand.
So what's the difference between ADHD and just being a kid? I mean, what kid doesn't want to run around and grab everything that's shiny and ignore boring things? The difference for me is that I can't choose to focus on something. My brain says, yes, let's work on this, but let's also focus on 5 to 10 other things that need to constantly shift until we go run a mile and then carve a wooden sword and then become ninja masters. And what was it I was working on? And then other times, my brain focuses on things way beyond normal, so hard, so completely, that I can't notice other things that are going on around me, like somebody talking to me.
Hey, Cameron? Hey, Cameron? Cameron? Hey, Cameron? Cameron?
Or that I need to eat.
You haven't eaten in 2 days.
2 days? Or that the house is on fire and I should run.
Also, the house is on fire. You gotta go!
This hyperactivity and inattention are obvious symptoms of ADHD, but it also has a secret, sneaky symptom. Something that can even get the best of ninja masters. It affects impulse control. Dios mío! It causes you to interrupt people, speak at inappropriate times, grab things. It makes it hard to listen to directions or to wait your turn. And the sneakiest, most underhanded part of it all is that it also makes it so you don't realize you're doing these things. And this makes it so difficult to make and keep friends or to have a job. As a kid, I often felt so out of control that I wasn't even in my own body, but instead watching a video of myself running around breaking things. It was scary. It made me not want to go to friends' houses. Luckily though, I had some big help, and we're going to get to that in just a little bit. So that's ADHD. Now what about dyslexia? First off, dyslexia is a word created by an evil doctor. Seriously, who came up with this strange combination of consonants and vowels? I think they did it as a test.
That's right. If they could spell it no matter how many times they read it, then they probably have it. I'm evil.
Dyslexia is a learning disability. A learning disability means that somebody has difficulty understanding words or numbers. And dyslexia means that somebody has difficulty learning to read even though they're smart and motivated. Dyslexia is something you're born with, and it often runs in families. And you know what? It's a part of you, and you're great, so it can't be all bad. The main problem that we dyslexics face is with phonemes, which is not a fake meme. This is the basic sounds of language, such as the t in tap. What we struggle with is to take that sound and the letter symbol and to be able to blend those together into words. This could explain why we dyslexics will read a word backwards, such as left as felt or knits as stink. Your teacher will be very confused when you write that your mother's stink is a hobby. Words may also blend together and spaces are lost.
This can make it difficult to recognize short, familiar words, or to sound out longer words.
Because of this, you lose track of what words mean, and reading comprehension becomes as bad as
A swift kick to the dark!
People with ADHD and dyslexia often get frustrated because no matter how hard they try, they can't keep up with their friends. And this is a big part of why they end up acting up or becoming the class clown, which is exactly how I got into performing. The last major thing that shaped who I am happened when I was 11 years old and my father started to become sick. He had a pacemaker and he was being shocked almost every single day. The doctor told him that his heart was giving out and he only had about a month to live. By the time I turned 12, this is when this was all basically happening, it happened and his heart gave out. And at almost the exact same time, they told us that they had a donor heart for him, but it was an hour away. So the doctor hand pumped his heart that entire hour. They got the heart to him and they successfully were able to get it put in. But because of the hand pumping, not enough blood and oxygen was able to circulate. And so the muscle in one of his legs died and they had to cut it off. And he also suffered a lot of brain damage. It meant that for the next about 6 years, we slowly watched my dad turn from the father we knew into a vegetable. This meant that most of my childhood was spent with me working full-time in kitchens, going to school, and taking care of my dad. He had to be watched. He needed help with the most basic things, from, washing himself, going to the bathroom, eating. And to be honest, before he got sick, he was a violent man and he hit us often. It made all of us really confused as we were going through this, because on the other hand, he also had the capability of being incredibly loving and creative and kind. And so we were kind of torn going through this whole process. But I think looking back, it really was his sickness and what we went through in these moments that more than anything shaped who I became as an adult. So what happened? Well, first of all, I don't feel like a victim or that my childhood was especially difficult. I know a lot of you watching this have dealt with similar things or a lot worse. These are simply the biggest things that affected who I was as a kid. But who I became as an adult is 100% about how we tackled these issues. I say we because nothing happens without other people. And I was lucky that my mother has dyslexia. I mean, it runs in families, so it was bound to be somebody. Thank goodness she was looking out for me. She saw that I was struggling, and she took all of us kids in to get tested. It was when I was in second grade that we found out what I had, and she worked hard to put together a plan. Even though she was already working super long hours and we didn't have a lot of money, she worked with the school to get me into special classes, got me into tutors, and got me on medication. Personally, I didn't like the medication. It made me feel like a stump, as if the best parts of me were cut away and I was left unmoving. It became my goal to find other solutions to the pills to get my energy under control. I started exercising every day. I would go for runs. I would create crazy obstacle courses. We'd make epic games of don't touch the ground tag. And at the same time, I was going to a great tutor. She would ask me my homework questions while I was bouncing on a trampoline, at the same time throwing balls at me. And during all of this, she would sound out words so I could learn to read. She was amazing. And last, and probably most important, my eldest sister Shannon stepped up in a huge way. When my dad became sick, she took it onto herself to make sure that there was an adult who was looking out for me. I spent so much of my teen years living with her, and she was amazing. She would keep me on the right track, encourage me to do my best, and also call me out when I was being a spaz. Even in the earliest days of Barely Balanced, when I decided to try to become an acrobatic comedian, she was super supportive and even helped me write a lot of the original jokes for the show. In so many ways, she played the part of a parent in all these moments when I just couldn't have one. And I'm so thankful to her. Shannon, you are amazing. Okay, so what do you do if you or your kids has ADHD or dyslexia? Well, first of all, make sure they get plenty of physical exercise. For me, I am so glad that I grew up near the woods where I could get away from adults, and a wild child like me could be wild. I could build things, break things. I could just let my imagination go wild. For you though, it might be something totally different. It might be roller derby, kickball, riding bikes, taking a vigorous walk, or sumo wrestling. The next big thing is make reading something the family does. Read to your kids. This not only helps them sound out the words, but it makes reading special. It makes it filled with positive memories. When I was a kid, my brother Ian would read to me the Goosebump books, and he would do all the voices. It was awesome. Speaking of reading, find something that sparks your interest. When I was 17, I discovered the Dragonlance books. It was the first time I read something that I loved. I devoured the entire series. I went from hating reading to loving it. It's now one of my favorite hobbies. Margaret, how much do I read?
All the time!
It was a game changer for me. But what about you? For me, it was fast-paced fantasy books. But what sparks your interest? Find that thing and start the journey. This fits exactly into my next suggestion, which is to schedule reading time for yourself. This makes it so that your kids see you enjoying to read. It makes it the norm, and it also provides them an opportunity to ask you about words. My last suggestion is don't be afraid to ask for help and be willing to give it. Going to a tutor doesn't mean you failed. It means you're trying to get better, and that's awesome. And when you take a moment to help someone on this path, you can truly change their lives. That's because when you help, you're not just lending a hand, but also giving emotional support. Dyslexia and ADHD leads to so much self-hatred and frustration. You lending a hand and giving that moment of care can be exactly what they need to start believing in themselves. All of these things can work for an adult too. Set aside time to read with a significant other, a friend, or programs through YouTube. You can also ask for additional training or reasonable accommodations from your employer or school through the Americans with Disabilities Act. If this is something you've battled with, please share your story in the comments. How would you describe how your brain works? What have you learned that might be able to help others? Before I go, I want to highlight that all the things that made my childhood difficult are the same things that made being an adult awesome. If I didn't have ADHD and have all that extra energy, then I wouldn't have gotten into circus arts. All that hyperness that made school difficult is exactly what I need to be able to pull off our stunts. And I'm not the only one. People with ADHD are more willing to take risks. This means they're also 3 times more likely to start their own business. You don't just have ADHD, you have the spirit of an entrepreneur. Adventurous daredevils hustling with determination. As for dyslexia, it made me become comfortable finding creative solutions to problems because I couldn't get my brain to work like everyone else. That ability to think and see things differently is how I come up with circus routines. Someone who colors inside the lines isn't going to think to climb on their friends and juggle fire. All this thinking outside the box makes people with dyslexia more likely to become artists and unique problem solvers. Pablo Picasso, Leonardo da Vinci, and Albert Einstein are all believed to have had dyslexia. So you're in good company. Welcome to the team. And growing up without my dad made me reach for ways to feel close to him. He loved historical festivals and introduced us to the Ren fairs in Ohio and Pennsylvania. I'm sure my interest in working these events comes directly from him. Losing him also made me realize how important it is to have adults that encourage you, care about you, and let you know it's going to be okay. It's exactly because of that I'm here telling you that you're special, amazing, and all the things that make you feel weird can instead be exactly what make you incredible.